This episode is brought to you by Amazon. The holidays are here, and you know what that means? It's time to get your friends and family the gifts they deserve. Take the stress out of shopping with Amazon's great deals and low prices on a huge range of items from toys to tech and much more. Whoever you're gifting for, Amazon has great prices on everything you need this holiday season. Shop Amazon for all your gifting needs.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. I hope you are doing well today. The phone number, if you want to be on the program, 877-973-7425. As always, text Eric to 33777, and you can follow along with the show, the live stream, the podcast, so much more. I want to kind of review some from yesterday. I want to talk to you a little more expansively now that we have more details. There was another school shooting in the United States yesterday. This one close to home. Just to give you perspective, I had close to 24 different people texting me yesterday, all concurrently. I finally just had to shift my monitor around so I couldn't see all the texts coming through. People who were affected by the shooting, who know me, who either had kids in the school or some of them, their children were teachers at the school. We're talking 1,900 kids at Appalachia High School in Barrow County near Winder, Georgia. Not Winder, as Vice President Harris said, Winder, Georgia. It obviously affected a lot of my listening audience, but yet it's another school shooting. You know, one of the listening audiences is Parkland, Florida. One of the other listening audiences I have is Newtown, Connecticut, all affected by school shootings and disturbing patterns of kids. And of course, the natural reaction in our country today, culturally, with the media and politicians, is to run towards gun control. But we have a Second Amendment that is an individual right to keep and bear arms. Every other amendment in the Bill of Rights is incorporated against the states. The Second Amendment was not for a very long time and finally was by the Supreme Court. And it makes sense. If the other amendments in the Bill of Rights apply to the states, then the Second Amendment has to as well. It's legal shenanigans to say otherwise. Unlike the abortion right, the right to keep and bear arms is clearly expressed in constitutional language. You can't actually find a right to abortion in the Constitution. You can't do it. It's not there. Doesn't make it any easier, though, when we're dealing with the loss of 4, 9 injured, 2 kids, 2 teachers killed. I want to begin again because it's come up overnight and a lot of listeners weren't around at the time. And I want to begin today where I ended yesterday and just talk to you a little bit about evil. Because we have conversations about guns, we don't have conversations about evil in society, and evil is real. Even atheists believe in evil oftentimes, spiritually. They believe in evil. They may not believe in God, but they're willing to acknowledge there's evil in the world. And oftentimes I get asked by atheists and others, how could I believe in a God who gave my wife cancer? And I tell them I don't believe God did. I believe we live in a fallen world full of sin and sinners. And sin twisted the world, and part of sin is disease, and disease is cancer. And that's why my wife has it. But I believe in a God who loved me so much that he came to earth, born in a manger, lived a perfect, blameless life, and was crucified as an awful sinner, though he wasn't, died but rose again. He does not allow us an escape from the evil of this world, but he himself decided to suffer through it with us, and I don't know why. If I knew all these answers, I would be in a cult, not a true religion. But what I know is that he's real. And contrary to the claims of some that God created evil, God did not create evil. He created all things, but evil is not a creation. Evil is the absence of God. And where God is not, evil is. And we see it in our world today as more and more people push God aside. We see more and more evil in the world, and oftentimes a very banal evil we don't even recognize as evil, the twisting of the world and science. The products of evil abound. People are very casually evil. Many times we assume the evil is good. Here we have a 14-year-old who, when he was 13 years old, 14 years old, by the way, just hold on to that fact. A 14-year-old did this. A 14-year-old. He's not of the age of consent to even enter into a contract, and yet was able to commit this horror in this school on classmates and teachers, and had been wanting to do it for a year, we now know. And police say there was nothing on which they could have detained him at the time. He denied it was him, said it wasn't him. His father said he didn't have access to guns. There are lots of questions there about that. And also prayers for that family, too, dealing with this tragedy, and prayers for all the other families affected. But we're dealing with a 14-year-old who committed an act of evil. We don't know a whole lot about him. They want to try him as an adult. He's going to be arraigned today. But, so did God create the devil? Well, God created an angel. And that angel could choose to follow God or choose to not follow God. And this gets into some of the stuff I was talking about yesterday in theology, that mankind is the only creation of God's creatures who can repent. Once an angel decides not to follow God, there's no coming back from that. Hell is a choice. Hell's a choice the devil made. Evil in the absence of God is the absence of God, and in that evil, that absence of God, those creatures who chose not to follow God fill that void. Demons are real. Aliens, I don't think, are real. Demons are very real. We don't talk about that. It sounds crazy to talk about it. It's wild how many people are so spiritual these days, and they might believe in angels or metaphysical crystals that can have some sort of power, but you don't want to talk about demons or the devil. It's the greatest trick the devil did, is to make us be convinced he's not real. Evil is a real thing, manifested in a creature devoid of God that might prowl and prey upon us. Sin itself is real. Sin causes disease. Sin causes turmoil. Sin causes my wife's cancer. Not my wife being a sinner per se, but a fallen world where disease entered in the form of the world. And when God flooded the world and wiped everything out, he couldn't wipe sin out of the world because he left Noah. Noah and his family were sinners. And it just spread back into the world. That's my worldview, by the way. God is real. Heaven and hell are real. God created a world. Adam and Eve were created in the image and likeness of God and chose evil, and their will is now bound to sin, and they can repent. This kid who did this 14-year-old, might one day find God and repent and be made whole and new, and still spend the rest of his life dealing with the consequences of what he did in a prison somewhere. It doesn't bring back the dead. And so we, as creatures in a fallen world, tend now to turn to our new religion, politics. Instead of prayers and thoughts and prayers, we turn to just do something. What could we do? Ban guns? We would have to get 2/3 of the House and the Senate and 3/4 of the states to do that. Ban assault weapons? Good luck getting that through Congress. And by the way, one of the worst mass school shootings in American history was Columbine, and it was during the assault weapons ban, and they still were able to pull it off. So what exactly do we do? We should probably have that discussion on mental health that no one seems to want to have. The left always wants to run to guns. A friend of mine says, do they want to run to guns because they're just thinking if we have enough of these school shootings, maybe they can get rid of the Second Amendment, so they actually need this violence to keep happening until people have enough of it and say, okay, we'll change the Second Amendment, because they don't want to fight and do anything on the other parameters. They don't, for example, want to allow teachers to be trained and arm themselves. They're perfectly comfortable with teachers being used as human shields, but also to have swords to protect the kids. They don't want that. I personally am in favor of letting teachers who wish to be armed to be trained and to carry concealed so that no one knows, so that they can actually help and protect. In private schools, some private schools, that happens. In a lot of public schools, it doesn't. That the left refuses to actually think differently on these issues and just go immediately to gun bans and let's have no other conversation about anything except gun bans makes me wonder if they actually want to solve the problem of school shootings, or are they using those as a convenient way to eventually maybe get to repealing the Second Amendment, which they're not going to do when it takes 3/4 of the states and 2/3 of Congress to do. There are ways to minimize and mitigate, but we're also not going to get rid of evil. And that's one of the other issues that people tend to seem to forget, is we're not going to get rid of evil. As we drive God out of society, evil is the absence of God, we're probably going to get more evil. We're probably going to get more awfulness in our society across the board. We see that awfulness spreading on both sides, a cold, casual cruelty to each other. Instead of loving our neighbor, we hate our neighbor if our neighbor's not part of our tribe. That's evil spreading. In the absence of God, we get that. In the absence of God, you know what we get? We get politics. Politics is our religion. Politics is our God. We worship at the altar of Moloch in Washington, not the altar of God Almighty himself. We believe that we have it within ourselves to alter our creation and society, whether it's the environmentalist or whether it's the conservative, one or the other, that we decide we can impose our will on society. Instead of having to rely on Almighty God, we become God ourselves. You shall be as gods. It's what the devil told Adam and Eve in the garden. It's the title of my new book, You Shall Be as Gods. We have become gods in our eye, and all we can do is make a mockery of the real one. There are 2 kids and 2 adults dead in Barrow County, Georgia, because a 14-year-old obtained a gun by law he's not allowed to have and used it to kill them and injure others. Passing a law to ban a gun is not going to happen, and even if it did, it's not going to bring those 4 back. But I continue to just wonder if maybe instead of having the gun conversation, we should have the conversation about how it is a 14-year-old chose to go down this path. What possessed a 14-year-old to want to commit a school shooting, something he's wanted to do since he was 13 years old? If we're not willing to have that conversation, we're not really willing to deal with the potential solutions to these problems. We're not really willing to honestly explore this violence. The just do something, pass a law, ban the gun, that doesn't figure out how a 14-year-old, when he was 13 years old, began to fantasize about killing people in a school and ultimately carrying it out. And I do suspect as we push God out of society, we get more, not less. More violence, more evil. And it comes oftentimes in the form of isolation and remoteness. It comes oftentimes in people not knowing their neighbor, let alone loving their neighbor. They're isolated from each other. We isolated a whole bunch of kids in 2020 and 2021. Their grades have gone down as predicted. They become more isolated. They become less likely to know their neighbor, certainly not care about their neighbor, not love their neighbor. We're getting the society we ourselves designed because we ourselves shall be as gods and reorder the society as we want. And the society that we've decided we want is not a healthy society. And until churches stand up and people stand up and fill that void, the only void that's going to fill it is a government, and a government that fills it is a government of a bunch of sinners who's just going to be a sinful government without a solution to the problem and nature of evil. The way we solve this problem is we have to recommit ourselves to love our neighbor regardless of which party they support or how they identify in society. And we have to begin individually and as groups ministering to those who feel left behind in society, are isolated from society, feel outcast from society, or don't even wish to be a part of society. We were not made to be alone. People need community. And it's going to be our local communities that come together and solve these problems. It's not going to be elected officials in a state capital or a national government passing laws that are arguably unconstitutional to scratch the itch to just do something. If you want to do something, you yourselves are going to have to engage in doing it. Evil has yet again visited a group of people in a school. Kids are dead. Teachers are dead. The evil indwelled a 14-year-old boy who, since he was 13, wanted to do this. If we're going to have all the conversations about guns and not have the conversation about why a 14-year-old decided he wanted to do this, we're going to keep having the problem. And to the extent partisans wish to yell about guns, instead of talking about mental health and isolation and a 14-year-old doing this, there will be no solution to the actual problem, which is evil is filling the void because we've shoved God aside. Welcome back. It's Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. If you're on the phones, just please be patient with me. I want to get to your phone calls, and after this break, I got a short segment here. And I just got to say, talking to Jim here in studio with me, and I understand the reaction of people who are like, let's just that the kid needs to face justice and get this as quick as possible, give him the death penalty, get over. And I am so sympathetic to the view, but also, I'm sorry. Maybe it's I don't know, that the dad in me something, but how does a 14-year-old, what possesses a 14-year-old other than evil itself? And even then, why does a kid fill the void with? I honestly, I don't understand. I try to be an empathetic person. I try to understand people even when I disagree with them. I cannot wrap my mind around a 14-year-old who decides to go to school and wanted to do it as a 13-year-old and go to school and do this. I know there's a phrase some people use, particularly in the South. Some people just need killing, and I understand those who would just use it at this point. But y'all, I'm sorry. It absolutely baffles me, other than as a theological issue, that evil is real and can, in the absence of God, indwell us. But what in society, who in society, what institutions in society failed a kid so badly that at 14, before the age of consent, he decides to take other people's lives. And two teachers stand in the way of him, and he kills those two teachers who put themselves between their students and the bullets. And again, as well, I just believe if we're going to have the Second Amendment conversation, we need to have the conversation as well about allowing teachers who are interested to arm themselves so that they're not just human shields, but also swords to protect their students. Now, I got to tell you about the Eden Pure Thunderstorm 3-pack before I get out of here. The Eden Pure Thunderstorm 3-pack, it's an air purifier. It wipes out odors. It doesn't just get rid of the dust and the pollen. It eliminates the odor. So a dirty diaper odor, a smoke odor, a litter box odor, a pet odor, a cooking odor, a musty house odor, a musty basement odor, wipes them out. You can get 3 of them for less than $200, and you save $200 by going to EdenPureDeals.com. EdenPureDeals.com. Eden like the Garden of Eden, pure as the driven snow, EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code, you'll see a little box right on the front page of that website. Put in ERIC3, ERICK3. You get 3 Eden Pure Thunderstorms. You save $200. Get them for upstairs, downstairs, your basement, your RV, your travel bag. You can hold them in your hand. I plug mine in with a USB cord into my laptop, and it works great. I've used it in cars. I've used it in hotels. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3, ERICK, and then number 3. I got forwarded a very nice voicemail from my affiliate out in Tulsa from a guy who said that he's been trying to get me off the radio out there since they put me on, and he's decided I'm not a bad guy. I appreciate that. It takes a little while. I'm just a harmless, lovable fuzzball. Fatter than I should be, not as fat as I could be if y'all see how much I eat. 877-973-7425 is the phone number if you'd like to be on the program. I want to begin with Richard. Richard, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, Eric, I appreciate it. I'm going to get right to it. I'm absolutely a Christian. Jesus Christ is the Lord and Savior of my life, and he and I both know it better than anybody else. I want to back you up and say that mental health is a demonic force that you have to battle against. But to step back from a theological aspect just for a moment, because it affects us all equally: Christian, Muslim, Catholic, Jewish alike, Buddhist, atheist. Right? What we should be looking at is why these children, like you've been saying, feel the need. And I'm one that has dealt with it my whole life. I've suffered with mental illness. I think we all do on a certain level, but as someone that's bipolar and have been since I was a child, it's a lot different. And you're asking a child to deal with a lot of things that adults can't deal with. Bullying, being made fun of, being picked on, being unheard. Do we know what kind of program the school had in place or the school system had in place? Because he came from a middle school probably where he might have dealt with something.
Yeah,
and now,
I don't know that we do.
This early into the school year, he hasn't even been bullied yet, but he felt the need, like you said. And it is a force that you have to battle against, the need to hurt other people because you feel hurt.
Yeah.
Right? So instead of looking at the rhetoric of gun control and background checks that aren't going to affect a 14-year-old child, because there's no background check, there's no magazine requirement for a 14-year-old child. Instead of looking at that and going with the rhetoric over and over again, before we even knew who it was, they were on the news talking about, oh, this is why we need universal background checks and this is why we need better gun control. You don't even know who shot it. Why not look at why it's always a male child? Why not look at why a child feels like the need to hurt other people because they feel hurt? Why not look at what the parents might not be doing at home? Why not look at what the society as a whole is not addressing? Versus looking at our means of defense. And that, as a Christian and as a person that believes, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat. I'm a person that believes in what I believe in if it makes sense. That's as simple as I can put it.
Richard, look, that's well said. I appreciate it a ton. And, yeah, there are a lot of unanswered questions. It was an AR platform he used. I assume, obviously he didn't purchase it. He's too young. And that's in the we need more laws thing. So what law would stop this? So I just, as a matter of practical application here, let me just say, as a matter of practical application, for those who want a ban on guns, it will take 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate and 3/4 of the states to repeal the Second Amendment. So that's probably not going to happen. So you go back to an assault weapons ban. Not sure that you could pass it, but even if you did, Columbine happened during an assault weapons ban, shotguns and handguns. So you're not probably going to eliminate that. A 14-year-old can't buy a gun. So a new law prohibiting 14-year-olds from buying guns wouldn't work. Gun confiscations aren't going to work because of the Second Amendment. So maybe we need to think of alternate solutions, such as, for example, allowing willing teachers, not all teachers, there are plenty of teachers who aren't going to want to, but those teachers who might want to be trained and certified to carry a firearm and concealed in a school, maybe we consider doing that. Maybe we increase mental health funding. I personally think that the government should increase mental health funding. But also, I gotta say again, I feel real strongly about this. My gosh, I'm trying not to be preachy theological to you because it's so much bigger than just the theology of the moment. But if you're a pastor at a church in a community and you're sending your kids on summer vacation to Mexico or the Dominican Republic or overseas somewhere, have you thought about your own backyard? There's a mission field in this country that is just ripe for the church. Also, I don't think it can go without being said how there are so many schools these days, public schools in particular, hostile to allowing churches to come in. I'll tell you, a buddy of mine here in the metro Atlanta area, he's a pastor at a school, and his church, a lot of the people in his church, they go to the same school. And so his church has basically taken over the after-school activities. You want the volunteer coaches for the Little League baseball team and the football team. They're probably from that church. The head of the drama program, the after-school talent show program, they're members of that church. And they've just infiltrated the apparatus of the school, and they minister to a lot of the kids in that school, not explicitly, but by being involved and having to care for the kids who are left out and neglected or bullied and bringing them in. And there are ways for churches to minister in schools without explicitly ministering in schools and filling the void in a school system. I can't get it out of my head that this kid was 14, has been plotting this since he was 13 years old on a Discord channel. And I've gotten the emails and I've had the direct messages on social media from people saying it's the video games, it's the video game. Maybe it's the video games, but I do have to tell you that there are disproportionately, when you look at the numbers of kids who are using the video games, like Fortnite and Call of Duty, including my 15-year-old versus the kids who are doing these shootings, it's not actually oftentimes a common denominator. This kid apparently had a Discord channel, was on Discord and playing games, but oftentimes the kids who are doing the first-person shooters, they're not the ones who are shooting up the school. Mental health, though, I think has to it's incumbent on us to deal with mental health. Everybody's screaming about, we got to do something about the guns. We got to do something about the mental health. In fact, it's probably easier legislatively to deal with the mental health issue than it is the gun issue because of the Second Amendment. And I just don't think that it's helpful to fixate on the Second Amendment issue when the reality is that probably it's easier to deal with the mental health issue, go the paths of least resistance and the low-hanging fruit, and that is the mental health issue, because of the legislative concerns about the Second Amendment. I also do have to say, I am a proponent of the Second Amendment. And my incendiary view, that I don't mean to be incendiary, and I understand that the feelings are raw and the emotions are raw after another school shooting. But I personally think in this country, our solution needs to be in favor of more guns, not less guns. And I'm sensitive to the emotions of people on a day like this. But hear me out. I would prefer a well-armed citizenry that is responsible and knows how to use guns than a citizenry that has a right to keep and bear arms and the worst people in society take advantage of it and not the best people in society. We're not going to get the guns out of our society. I know the left insists we are, but we're not, because the Second Amendment is an explicit constitutional right that would take 2/3 of the House, 2/3 of the Senate, and 3/4 of the states to deal with it. So maybe we should all be responsible citizens and training ourselves on the use of arms, how to use them, how to clean them, how to take care of them, how to keep them out of our kids' hands. Do you know that a toddler, every day in this country, 365 days a year, a toddler kills someone with a firearm? I thought that statistic was absurd, but it's apparently true. Why? Because idiots leave their guns laying around for the toddlers to play with, and it winds up killing either the kid or someone else. That's irresponsible behavior. And if people would take classes and learn responsible gun safety, when we started having people show up at our home to threaten us, my wife and I put our kids through gun safety programs and ourselves as well, because we figured, when by the time you call 911 and they show up at your house, you're going to be dead. So we are our own first responders in our house. But with a gun comes a lot of responsibility. How to store it, where to keep it, never have the magazine in the gun, keep them close but separate, things like that. That we went through a brilliant gun safety program. More people should do it. More people should do it. Also, there's something else here. I really didn't intend to spend this entire time on this, but it's relevant. Parents, talk to your children. I don't know anything about the situation with this kid and parent. Oftentimes in these situations, the child and the parent don't have a good relationship. More often than not, that seems to be the pattern in these when you look at the school shootings. And the boys, and by the way, it's almost always boys, or it's a girl who identifies as a boy. The Audrey Hale Her journal is out, and basically she decided she's going to go murder a bunch of Christian kids because God didn't make her boy. Notice how the media has inconveniently chosen not to cover the actual news of this girl's journal, that she intentionally decided to kill a bunch of Christian kids because she thought she should have been born a boy, and she was mad at God. Clearly another mental health issue with mental health all around, but yet that's the mental health issue we're not allowed to talk about because we're supposed to normalize that mental health issue. But parents, talk to your kids. Love your kids. You know, I'm running long and I'm trying to steer from the theology, but I got to go back to this one. Read the story of Noah in Genesis 6, 7, 8. You know, God decided to wipe out humanity. Used a big flood to do it. Told Noah to build a boat. Everybody thought he was nuts. Spent a very long time building this boat. People thought he was crazy. Noah's kids, God didn't like them. They were sinners too. But Noah found favor in God's eyes. So Noah's kids were allowed on the boat along with their wives because the father found favor in God's eyes, so his whole family was given a pass. Dads actually really matter. Whether you believe it or not, take from it if you just view it as a moral story, dads matter tremendously. Fathers matter. I'm blessed to have good relationships with my kids. I know fathers who have terrible relationship with their kids. Mending those relationships matters. I can't imagine what the families are going through who lost their children in the shooting, and I can't imagine what the family is going through whose son did this. I don't want to even attempt to walk in those shoes to try to understand it. It's just too awful. But having good, right relationships with your kids matters. It also matters, honestly, it matters for the kids who are in that school, who were in a situation where they might have thought they were going to die, to know that they were loved. And to know as well, when that time came and a matter of eternity became very real to them, to know it was real and where they were going if that should be. These things matter. And you shouldn't have to wait until horror comes and evil rears its head to understand those things matter. A lot of people went to Wednesday prayer meetings in Georgia last night and around the country, and those prayers were a little deeper and a little more meaningful and a little more real. For all the people who mock the thoughts and prayers, the prayers do matter. The prayers do work, and you shouldn't mock the grieving. All right. We can move on to the other news of the day. There's a lot more stuff to cover. Beforehand, let me tell you about Old Glory Bank, my bank. I actually do use Old Glory Bank. It really is my bank. I won't give you my login for my password and stuff. I'm not going to show you my debit card on camera with my number on it, but I love Old Glory Bank. Direct deposit into them. They make it really easy. I love their online bill pay. It's very easy to pay bills, very easy to use their budgeting tools online. You can get mortgages with them, loans with them. You can even deposit cash at Old Glory Bank, even though they're an online bank. You don't have a branch near you, but you can still deposit cash. They've been very innovative, very thoughtful in how they wanted to do this. This is a bank for conservatives, by conservatives. They were created because of the debanking trends in the country, and they wanted a place where conservatives, where gun owners, for gun stores, where small businesses that are explicitly conservative would have a safe place to do business. If you go to oldglorybank.com, you can get an account with them. Oldglorybank.com. You can get a no-fee checking, no-fee savings account. They've got premium accounts as well with more features. They've got business checking and business savings. Oldglorybank.com. It is my bank. It can be your bank. It can be your kid's bank as well. Get your kids a great custodial account with Old Glory Bank. Oldglorybank.com, member FDIC, equal housing lender, terms and conditions apply. This hour of the program brought to you by First Liberty Building and Loan, wherever you are. If you're buying a building, buying a franchise, getting a loan for heavy equipment, things like that for your business, First Liberty Building and Loan might be able to help you. Reach out to them. Spend 10 minutes with them. See if they're fit for you, you for them. FirstLibertyGA.com. They can help any business nationwide. FirstLibertyGA.com. Okay, I want to read this from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, which I need to say, As much as I have criticisms oftentimes of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, they've done a very good job covering this incident, and the local TV station, WSB-TV, and my radio station, WSB Radio, my flagship station in Atlanta, very good. All of you, don't care where you are, listen to this. This is from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Marcy Gray, the mother of the suspect in Wednesday's Appalachia High School shooting, has a criminal record spanning more than 17 years and 4 counties. The 43-year-old has faced prosecution in Barrow, Fulton, and Forsyth counties, accused of domestic violence, drug possession, property damage, and traffic violations. She has also faced civil fraud charges related to a vehicle purchase and was in jail in Ben Hill County as recently as April. Marcy Gray was arrested on November 6th in Barrow County, suspected of possessing methamphetamine, fentanyl, and muscle relaxants. Publicly available court records indicate she was not actually charged with drug possession in relation to her arrest. The arrest warrant states that Marcy Gray had a glass jar containing methamphetamine, a baggie containing fentanyl, another baggie containing multiple muscle relaxants, and a glass pipe used for the ingestion of narcotics. She also concealed the identity of her Nissan Rogue by affixing a tag for a Nissan Kick, the warrant states. In December, Marcy Gray was charged with and pleaded guilty to single counts of using a license plate to conceal identity, criminal damage to property in the second degree, and criminal trespass, family violence. Her guilty plea form filed in Barrow County Superior Court showed she was prosecuted under Georgia's First Offender Act, which allows eligible defendants to plead guilty without being convicted. She was sentenced December 21st to 5 years in jail, with the first 46 days to be spent in confinement and the remainder on probation. As a special condition, she was ordered to pay over $1,500 in restitution to a construction company. She was prohibited from having any contact with her husband except through a third party for matters concerning their children or divorce. She was ordered to participate in family violence intervention program and to stay away from drugs and alcohol. And it goes on and on and on. I hope this woman is deep in contemplation today about how her behaviors affected her son in such a way that he decided to go gun down people in a school. Because a 14-year-old does not act out like that without other factors in his life. Parents, the role you play in screwing up your children or not. Wow. I'm so angry at that kid for what he did. But also know how much more depth of depravity there is in other people's lives affecting him. Complicated situation. Evil is messy. We got to move on to other stuff, and we will when we come back. There's plenty of other news out there to talk about today.